I trusted her with everything. But now I'm drowning in debt. How far would you go to repay a debt? And at what cost?
In the bustling city of Lagos, Chuka worked diligently as a bank employee. Every day, he handled countless transactions, processed loans, and assisted clients in managing their finances. Despite the stress of his job, Chuka found comfort in the thought of returning home to his girlfriend, Maku. She was the light of his life, or so he thought. Maku, on the other hand, had a different story. She had been unemployed for months, but instead of seeking a job, she found herself drawn to the allure of gambling. It started innocently enough, small bets here and there, but soon, Maku was hooked. She borrowed money from Chuka multiple times, claiming it was for necessities. Chuka, trusting her completely, never questioned her intentions. He even took out a loan from the bank to help her when she said she needed to start a small business. One day, as Chuka was reviewing his finances, he noticed something alarming. The loan he had taken out for Maku's business was gone, with nothing to show for it. Suspicious, he decided to confront Maku. "Maku, where's the money for the business? I've noticed the loan is gone, and I don't see any progress," Chuka asked gently, not wanting to accuse her outright. Maku hesitated, her eyes darting nervously. "Oh, Chuka. The business idea didn't work out. I lost it all," she lied. But Chuka wasn't easily fooled. His experience as a bank employee had taught him to spot inconsistencies. He pressed further, and finally, Maku broke down. She confessed everything, how she had used the money to gamble, hoping to win big and repay him, but instead, she lost it all. Chuka felt a wave of anger and disappointment wash over him. "Maku, you borrowed money from me so many times, and each time I believed you. I even took out a loan to help you, and now you're telling me it's all gone. This is unacceptable." Maku pleaded with Chuka for forgiveness, promising she would change, but Chuka had made up his mind. "Maku, I can't continue like this. You've broken my trust too many times. I want you to repay the loan you owe me, and after that, we're done." Maku was devastated. She had no money, no job, and now, no Chuka. Desperate, she tried to borrow more money, but no one was willing to lend to her. The word had spread about her gambling addiction, and no one wanted to risk it. Days turned into weeks, and Maku found herself sinking deeper into despair. The weight of the loan she owed Chuka was a constant reminder of her mistakes. She knew she had to pay him back, but how? With no other options, Maku made a decision that would change her life forever. She became a prostitute, selling her body to pay off the loan. Each night was a nightmare, but she pushed through, knowing that every naira she earned was one step closer to repaying Chuka. Maku's new life was a far cry from what she had imagined for herself. The once vibrant and lively woman was now a shell of her former self, weighed down by guilt and shame. But she was determined to pay off the loan, no matter the cost. Maku walks through the crowded streets, her eyes fixed on the ground. The vibrant city, alive with activity, feels distant to her. People move past her, their laughter and conversations blending into a distant hum. Her heart races, and her thoughts spiral as she contemplates the choice she's about to make. In a city that never sleeps, Maku's world had come to a standstill. Every step she took felt heavier, as if the weight of her decisions pressed down on her shoulders. She had tried everything to repay the loan and mend the pieces of her shattered life. But no matter how hard she worked, the debt loomed over her like a dark cloud. She stops in front of a run-down building with a flickering neon sign. The words are barely legible, but she knows where she is. Her hands tremble as she pushes open the door and steps inside. The club is dimly lit, with the air thick from cigarette smoke. The low hum of music vibrates through the floor, and the smell of alcohol lingers in the air. Maku stands at the entrance, feeling out of place. The noise, the lights, and the people, everything is overwhelming. The club was a world away from the life Maku had once known. The vibrant colors and loud music were a stark contrast to the quiet, simple life she had left behind. But desperation had driven her here, to a place where she never imagined she would find herself. She takes a deep breath and moves towards the bar, her eyes scanning the room nervously. She feels the stares of a few patrons but avoids making eye contact. When she reaches the bar, she hesitates before speaking. "What can I get you?" Maku's voice is barely audible over the music. "I'm looking for work." The bartender, a middle-aged woman with a hardened expression, gives Maku a long, assessing look. She nods towards a door at the back of the club. "Talk to the boss, he'll let you know if there's something for you." Maku nods and walks towards the door, her heart pounding in her chest. As she pushes it open, she feels like she's crossing a line she can never come back from. The office is small and cluttered, with papers and bottles scattered across the desk. The boss, a large man with a rough demeanor, sits behind the desk, flipping through a stack of bills. He barely looks up when Maku enters. "You need something?" Maku swallows hard, her voice shaking. "I'm looking for work. I'll do anything." The boss looks up, his eyes narrowing as he studies her. He leans back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "Anything, huh? You sure about that?" Maku nods, though her stomach churns with fear. "Yes. I need the money. I have to pay back a loan." The boss raises an eyebrow, then shrugs. "All right, but this isn't easy work, you need to be tough. Can you handle that?" Maku hesitates for a moment but then nods again. "I can handle it." With those words, Maku sealed her fate. She had crossed a line, stepping into a world she knew little about, driven by the need to repay the loan that had upended her life. But as she stood in that cramped office, fear gnawing at her insides, she couldn't help but wonder if there was still a way out, if she could somehow find a path back to the life she once knew. Maku leaves the club, her mind racing with thoughts of what she had just agreed to. The city feels colder now, the night air biting at her skin. She wraps her arms around herself, trying to hold on to some semblance of warmth. Every step Maku took felt like she was walking further away from who she used to be. The debt, the loan that hung over her, had driven her to this point, where survival meant compromising the very essence of who she was. But in the quiet of the night, as she walked through the city streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing something far more precious than money. She was losing herself. Maku sits on her bed, staring at the crumpled bills in her hand. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make a payment on the loan. She had finally made some progress, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Maku knew that the money she held was tainted, earned through desperation and choices she never thought she'd have to make. But as she stared at the bills, she reminded herself of why she was doing this. Why she had agreed to work in that club. The loan, the debt that had driven a wedge between her and Chuka, was a burden she couldn't carry alone. She had to repay it, no matter what it took. She lies back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. The room feels suffocating, the walls closing in around her. She tries to sleep, but her mind won't stop racing. Is this really the only way? Is there no other choice? She closes her eyes, trying to shut out the thoughts that haunt her. But sleep doesn't come easily. The night stretches on, and Maku is left alone with her fears and regrets. Maku walks back to the club the next night, her heart heavy with dread. She knows what awaits her, but she pushes down her fear, reminding herself of the loan, the debt she must repay. The club is just as it was the night before, dimly lit, filled with smoke and noise. Maku makes her way to the back room, where the boss waits for her. The room is small, with a single bed pushed against the wall. The boss stands by the door, watching as Maku enters. "You ready?" Maku nods, though her hands shake. "I'm ready." The boss gives a curt nod and leaves the room, closing the door behind him. Maku is left alone, her heart pounding in her chest. Maku stood in that room, her mind racing with thoughts of what she was about to do. The fear, the shame, the guilt, they all swirled together in a storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. But she pushed it all down, focusing on the one thing that mattered, the loan, the debt that had brought her here. She takes a deep breath and sits on the bed, waiting for the door to open. The nights blur together as Maku continues to work at the club, each one harder than the last. The money she earns goes straight to the loan, but no matter how much she pays, it never seems to be enough. She walks the same streets night after night, her eyes dull, her spirit broken. The city that once held so much promise now feels like a prison, each corner a reminder of the choices she's made. With each night that passed, Maku felt herself slipping further away from the person she once was. The weight of the loan, the debt that had driven her to this point, pressed down on her, crushing any hope she had left. But even as she sank deeper into despair, she held on to the faintest glimmer of hope, that one day, she would be free, and the debt would be repaid. Maku sits at the small table in her apartment, counting the money she's earned. It's not much, but it's enough to make another payment on the loan. She carefully places the bills in an envelope, her hands trembling. "I'm doing this for you, Chuka. I'm doing this so I can repay the loan, so I can make things right." She tries to convince herself that she's doing the right thing, that this is the only way. But deep down, she knows the truth. Maku knew that the path she had chosen was one of pain and sacrifice. But she also knew that she couldn't turn back now. The loan, the debt that had torn her life apart, was a burden she had to bear alone. And so, she continued, night after night, hoping that one day, the weight of that burden would be lifted. Maku walks through the city, her eyes fixed on the ground. The vibrant lights and sounds of the city feel distant to her, as if she's trapped in a world she no longer belongs to. She reaches the club, but this time, she doesn't go inside. Instead, she stands outside, staring at the building, her heart heavy with doubt. For the first time, Maku hesitated. The loan, the debt that had driven her to this point, still loomed over her, but something inside her had changed. She couldn't keep doing this, couldn't keep selling pieces of herself to pay off a debt that seemed never ending. She turns away from the club, walking in the opposite direction. She doesn't know where she's going, but she knows she can't go back. Maku sits on her bed, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She knows that without the money from the club, she won't be able to make the next payment on the loan. But the thought of going back to that life fills her with dread. Maku says, "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep losing myself, night after night. There has to be another way." She lies back on the bed staring up at the ceiling. The room is silent, the only sound her own breathing. Maku knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that the loan, the debt that had consumed her life, would still be there, waiting. But she also knew that she couldn't keep going down the path she had chosen. It was time to find another way, to reclaim the life she had lost. The next morning, Maku walks through the city, her steps lighter than they've been in weeks. The sun shines down, warming her skin, and for the first time in a long time, she feels a glimmer of hope. She doesn't know how she's going to repay the loan, but she knows she'll find a way, one that doesn't involve losing herself in the process. Loan, the debt that had driven her to the brink, was still there, but she knew she could face it. She had made her decision, and now, it was time to find a new path. A path that would lead her back to the person she once was. One evening, after a particularly grueling night, Maku returned to her small apartment, exhausted. She had nearly saved enough to repay the loan, but at what cost? Her body was bruised, her spirit broken, and the vibrant spark in her eyes was long gone. As she sat on her bed, counting the money she had earned, there was a knock on the door. Startled, Maku hesitated before opening it. To her shock, it was Chuka. "Maku, what have you done to yourself?" Chuka asked, his voice filled with concern. He had heard rumors about her new life and had come to see if it was true. Maku couldn't hold back her tears. "Chuka, I did this for you. To repay the loan. I didn't know any other way." Chuka was speechless. He had wanted his money back, but not like this. Seeing Maku in this state made him realize the depth of her desperation. Chuka sat down with Maku, trying to understand her situation. "Maku, I never wanted this for you. I just wanted you to be honest with me. The loan was never worth this." Maku wiped her tears, her voice trembling. "I know I made mistakes, but I was so lost. I wanted to make things right, but I ended up ruining everything." Chuka sighed, looking at the woman he once loved. "Maku, I don't know if we can fix what's been broken, but we need to find a way to end this cycle. Let's figure out a plan, together." As they talked late into the night, it became clear that their story was far from over. Maku still had a significant amount of the loan to repay, and Chuka knew they had to find a solution that didn't involve further self-destruction. Their journey was just beginning, and the path ahead was uncertain. Would they be able to mend their broken relationship? The days following Chuka's visit were a blur for Maku. She couldn't shake the shame of what she had become, but she also felt a strange sense of hope. Chuka's words lingered in her mind. "We need to find a way to end this cycle." Maku knew that she couldn't continue on the path she was on, but she also didn't want to drag Chuka further into her mess. She decided to take a step that she had avoided for too long, seeking help. One morning Maku found herself standing outside a small counseling center in Lagos. She had heard about it from a former client who had managed to turn his life around. The counselor was a kind woman named Mama Nkechi, who specialized in helping people with addictions. Maku walked into the center, her heart pounding. She explained her situation to Mama Nkechi, who listened patiently. "You've been through a lot, Maku," Mama Nkechi said softly. "But the first step to recovery is admitting you need help. I'm proud of you for coming here." Maku nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know how to pay off the loan or fix my relationship with Chuka. I feel like I've lost everything." Mama Nkechi smiled warmly. "We'll take it one step at a time. First, you need to heal yourself. Then we can talk about the loan and your relationship. It's going to be a long journey, but you don't have to do it alone." Maku started attending counseling sessions regularly. She slowly opened up about her gambling addiction, her struggles with money, and her complicated feelings for Chuka. With Mama Nkechi's guidance, Maku began to understand the root of her problems and how to take control of her life again. Meanwhile, Chuka was dealing with his own emotions. He felt torn between his feelings for Maku and the betrayal he had experienced. Every time he thought about the loan and what Maku had done to repay it, a mix of anger and sadness welled up inside him. One day, as Chuka was at work, he found himself distracted by thoughts of Maku. He wondered if she was okay, if she had found a way to cope with her struggles. Finally, he decided to call her. "Maku, how are you?" Chuka asked cautiously. Maku hesitated before responding. "I'm doing better, Chuka. I've been seeing a counselor, trying to sort out my life. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying." Chuka felt a wave of relief. I'm glad to hear that. I've been thinking about us, about the loan, and everything that's happened. Maybe we can find a way to move forward, together. Will she find the strength to overcome the new challenges ahead, or will the past drag her back into despair? Don't miss the next episode to find out. Stay tuned for part 2 of A Couple Named Chuka and Maku. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next in this gripping story of love, debt, and redemption.